So I'm going to get back over here on the American Pacemaker and get back on a couple of the repair jobs that I needed to do to this thing that I've been kind of putting on hold there. So the first one that we're going to start with is we're going to come back here to our cross slide, and we've got some videos on repairing and rebuilding the top slide here, the compound slide. So if you haven't seen those, check those out, where we machined a new lead screw and a nut, cleaned it up, and got it back together and working just like it's supposed to. All right, so once we had put it back on the lathe and started doing some testing there, I actually, once I installed all this back together, I realized that we had another problem that we needed to deal with, and that is the gib here for the cross slide. It's up inside the wiper plate right here, so I need to get that off, but I'm going to show you guys this. We're going to pull this gib back out. The problem is that there's too much wear on the gib, and I run out of adjustment there. So there's actually too much backlash in the cross slide in the gib right here. So turning is really not too bad, but whenever you've got a large boring bar out here, you know, you got this turn, you got a tool in here, and you got a bore bar hanging out. That cantilever action of the pressure of the tool, of the cut applying down, it's trying to pick up this cross slide like that. Okay, that's an exaggerated motion, but you got too much slack there in the gib. So instead of building a new gib, I'm going to simply attempt to glue some shim to the gib to bring the thickness back to where it needs to be in order to take up that slack that it's got in there and hopefully bring it back to the adjustment. Okay, this will be the first time I've done this, so we're going to be kind of learning as we go here. But you know, I've got some friends that's got more experience with this kind of repair here, so they're kind of guiding me along and just, you know, giving me some tips on what to do. So we can pull this gib out, we'll get everything cleaned, and then the first thing that we'll do is do some inspection to see if we can kind of figure out how much, what thickness of a shim that we need to put on the gib in order to get it back within tolerance that we need to, so that we can adjust it. All right, so I'm gonna bring you along for the ride, and hopefully we can get this guy fixed up and working just like it's supposed to again. Before we start the disassembly, I'm gonna go ahead and pull on this cross slide so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So we got our dial indicator set there. I got the boring bar holder up here so I can get some leverage on it, and I'm going to pull it my way, simulating if this was in a bore making a cut. So you can see the rock, it's obvious. Kind of hard to see the indicator from up here, but it looks like right at 10 thousandths or so. About 10 thousandths. All right, so there's our screw right there. This is what you use to adjust the gib, and I've actually got it screwed all the way in as far as it'll go. So we can't adjust that gib anymore. All right, and we'll go ahead and unscrew it there so I can show you what we're talking about. I know a lot of you guys watching are fully aware of this and how it works. Some of the guys watching are not, and they're here to learn. So what we'll do is we'll put it back in there because I want to get some shim in there and see about what our gap is that we're trying to fill. All right, so there's the screw, and then here is our gib. Okay, so that little bit of movement, well, with the screw in there, but I'm just exaggerating, so we've got a little bit too much of that. Can't get it tightened up. And we need to go in a little bit further with our cross slide. There we go. All right. Okay, so there's our gib. All right. This is our bearing surface here, so this is our sliding surface. You can see the scrape marks that the factory puts in there to help with some oil. This is our oil groove right here. And on the back side here, now this is our static surface. So it does not move along the surface, other than just a simple little adjustment it out to take up the slack in there and remove as much backlash as you can. So my intentions here was to try to get a measurement on what our gap is there that we need using some feeler gauges. And then if we can determine what we need, cut some shim stock and clean the surface really well and glue some shim stock to this surface, building this thickness up the desired amount that we need in order to get this back into the adjustable range that it was designed to. You want to use that screw there and be able to adjust this in or out to take up the backlash, just to the point where you can move that freely without it binding up. So that's my goal anyway. We're going to see if we can pull this off, but I think that is a very simple and solid way to try to repair this without having to make another gib or do any other kind of repair work on this to build this surface back up. I think a simple shim stock is going to work good for that, hopefully. So we'll see. So I'll put this back in there, and we're going to see if we can get any kind of like feeler gauge in there to kind of determine the thickness of the shim that we might need. So getting this feeler gauge in there is proven to be a little tricky, but we're getting it. So this is a 2/1000 feeler gauge, and if we get it up in here in the dovetail and kind of hold it flat, we can get it kind of slide up in there like that, and we can even move our cross slide a little bit. But I'm able to push that up in there like that. There it is sliding. So definitely tell we need a little bit more than 2/1000, but we'll keep trying it here with our feeler gauges and see what we can get in there. So I've got 12.5 feeler gauge in there. I think this is getting me really close. I'm going to go ahead and pull you up here on the indicator again and show you what I'm getting on the dial here on our movement. So it looks like when I pull it really hard, what is that, about 3? I can't really tell. So I think we're gonna try, I've got some 12.5 shim stock, so I think we're gonna try a piece of 12.5 and see if we can actually just get it in there and do some more checks with it before we do any kind of gluing to see if it's gonna put us in the range that we need to be in. All right, so this is our pack of shim stock there. I've got them starting at 1/2 thousandths, and then they go up in various thickness by 1/1000ths, some of them 1/1000.5, all the way up to 60/1000ths total. So it says 12.5 is going to be the black colored shim stock here. So let's see. I'm not seeing any black shim stock in here. Oh, is that it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Must be this one right here. Try to be careful with that stuff because it's easy to bend it, that really thin stuff there. Just want to inspect it and make sure that we got the right one. (12.7 so I would say that should be the one. 12.7. So maybe it's 2/10 thicker than what they actually listed as, but that should be the right one right there. All right, we're gonna give this a try. I got a piece of plywood up there, and all I want to do is just kind of square this up since this piece hasn't been cut yet. Just try to square it up with the board there, and I'm gonna lay the gib on top of it. Now I'm gonna stick our notch there where our screw goes just past the end because we don't want it the entire length. So about kind of even with the inside of that screw slot. Even up the side here. That's looking pretty good, and I'm gonna try to use a razor knife to see if I can cut that. As a matter of fact, let's give it just a little bit of clearance. I'm going to pull this edge over just slightly. Let's see if that'll work right there. That looks good.
Okay.
That should be good. Now hopefully we can just use our gib as a tracer there and just come down here with our razor knife and cut that. All right, we got a fresh razor blade in the knife there, so let's see if this is gonna work. I'm running into the clamp now. I think that worked pretty good. Oh yeah. There we have it. I think that worked pretty good. Feels like it's got a nice flat edge there, even where we cut it. May have to trim. I think I'm gonna have to trim the end just a little bit more. I didn't quite have enough there to get out of the way of the slot. And then we'll also have to see if I can cut out a little notch there. We'll cut out a little circle area there where it's gonna clear our oil passage to get in there so the oil can come through and oil it properly. So we'll work on that as well. I'll go ahead and just try to get all that done, so if this does work, we can just go ahead and start with our gluing process. Looks like we lined up good. All right, we're gonna attempt a trial fit right here. Let's see if I can get the shim in there without it getting all bound up and stuck or trying to slide out on us. Looks like it's gonna work, hopefully. Let me get our screw in there. Starting to get a little tight on me. I'm wondering if I'm too thick now. We need the gib to go at least flush with the face of the cross slide there. Definitely an improvement, but I think we may have to recut this. Yep, it just ain't gonna go. Now it's getting too tight. So yeah, it's definitely locked up now. All right, well, I am gonna do some checking on here and see how that tightened up our backlash anyway. And what I'll do is I'll probably go ahead and pull out the 10,000 shim stock and just repeat the exact process that we just that I just showed you. It'll be the same thing. I'm betting that the 10,000ths will probably go in there, and it'll allow the gib to go completely flush with the face there. So we went ahead and recut us another gasket using our 10 thousandths shim stock there. And this may end up being the one that we use there. I think that's going to be the ticket, is the 10 thou. We got it cut out there for our oil groove. So got that gasket ready. But I think before we carry on with getting our gasket on there, I want to do a little bit more work to the gib here. What I would like to do is actually check this to see if it's straight. And if it isn't, these are typically bent just a little bit in the center. They're usually bowed. And then see if we can go through the straightening process on getting it straight. Now, as far as scraping this, I'm not really interested in scraping this. And the reason why is because I don't see the benefits of doing any scraping on this gib if you're not scraping it to match the cross slide and the carriage as well. So really all I want to do is just check this for straightness and just try to get as straight as we can before we put our shim on there. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm going to move it down here. Let's put a pig mat here to kind of hold it. And this static side, usually you get a little bit of burring right here where that key is. So I want to stone it. Actually, let me do this. There we go. I'll keep it from sliding around. And then take our precision flat stones there. Yep, I can definitely feel it there on that slot side. Feel a little bit right in there. We're just removing any burrs on it. That's all we're doing. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and just run it across this side as well. All right, so you can definitely see some wear in there. I can see I know it's hard for you guys to kind of see this. I don't think I can show that, but it's polishing more on this bottom area here and on the top area up there. So it's definitely got some wear in the middle. How much that is, I don't know. You may be looking at a 0.5 thousandths to 1 thousandths maybe unevenness. But anyway, let's go to the granite surface plate and check it to see if it's bowed, and if it is, how much it's bowed in the center. All right, we got you in here at the Starrett granite plate. I've already cleaned it using the granite plate cleaner. And just making sure any dust is off of it. And then we'll take our gib, we're going to put it down on the static side. And I want to hinge it. So it's not too bad, but I can tell it's hinging here. And I don't know, maybe about 1 inch or so from that end there. So that is telling me you got a slight amount of bow in this. So we've got our feeler gauges set up, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. I want to see what's going to go underneath there. So we got our 1.5 is going to go underneath there. 2 thousandths. 2 thousandths is easily going underneath there. 2.5. That's going underneath there. How about our 3? 3's going underneath there as well. 4 thou. Okay, it's trying to, but it caught it there. So I'm going to say somewhere between 3 and 4 thousandths bow in that gib. All right, so we'll go back to the fireball fixture table, set this guy up on some blocks, and we'll use a clamp and an indicator and see if we can get this pushed down a few thousandths and see if we can get it to hinge a little bit better. What you're looking for is approximately 30% in from each end. You want it evenly, and that's where it should hinge once it's flat. But we'll see if we can make a little progress on that. Okay, so here's our little straightening setup. It's pretty simple. We've just got a couple of blocks here on the end. These are the magnetic blocks just to raise it up off the table. All right, we've got a dial indicator set up. So I'm using that hole as a reference point to like the center there, because that was about where the shim was or the feeler was going up underneath there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring this dial indicator in to somewhere up in here. How about right up in there? Fine tune it here, fine adjust. To our 0. I'm going to see if I can use this clamp right here. Trying to get the slack out of it, honestly, so we can clamp it a little bit, push down on it, I mean. Seeing if we moved it any. All right, not much. So we're gonna have to go a little further now. I'm just sneaking up on it. Ran out of travel there. So we've moved it about a 1/2 thousandth so far. So I tell you what, let's see if we can preload this a little bit more. Let's go 50 thou and see if that does anything. So we're gonna have to go more than that. So we've got it 1/1000ths right there. Let's go another 10. Like that. That looks like it's moved at 1.5 thou. Let's maybe try it one more time, go another 10 thou on our press. So we'll go to the 20. So that's moved at 2/1000ths on the dial right there. So let's go back to the granite plate, try our feeler gauges again and see if we've made any improvement on this. Hinging right about there. And right about there. All right, we've got our feelers out again. 3/3000ths will not go underneath it. Let's try the 2.5. That one feels like it's trying to go underneath there. There's the 2 thou. All right, 2 thou is definitely going underneath there. So it looks like we're 2 to 2.5 thou, still a little bit of bow in there. So let's go back to the little bending fixture and see if we can get this moved about another 2/1000ths. All right, we got her set back up there. I've got to reset our 0. Let's bring that a little bit more to 12. So 2 thou, let's see if we can get about another 2 thou out of this. So I think last time we went to 20, so let's go to the 10 thou mark. Almost got it right there. That's 1.5 thou. Let's give it another try, shall we? It looks like we might have got it that time, or at least we moved it 2/1000ths. All right, so back to the granite plate again. Let's try our feeler gauges and see. Our hinging is improving. Now we're right about there on that end. And it looks like maybe right about there on that end. So it is improving. We're definitely getting some of that bow out of there. So we've got our 1.5, 2, and 2.5. The 2 is not wanting to go underneath it. All right, looks like it's trying to on that side right there. And then our 1.5. 1.5 is definitely going underneath it. Yeah. So 1.5. So I'm thinking our target is going to be between 1.5 and 2 thousandths of our bow there. And it seems to be pretty consistent with that cross hole, oil hole there. Right in that general area right there, yep. Just to the left side of the oil hole. Let's see if we can get about 2 more thousandths out of this. One thousandths. Give it another press. One and a half thou. One more time, maybe. Two thousandths. All right, so my thinnest feeler that I have there is 1.5, and it acts like it wants to go underneath there, but not quite. So what I did was I took a piece of my 1 thou shim stock there and just cut me a little strip so that we can kind of use this to, I was going to show you if I can get this in here. Show you that it's should be about 1 thou, 1,000th thick. Instead of trying to force it underneath there, what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to pick the gib up and I want to set it down on top of it like that. And I want to see if I can just easily slide it out of there. So that right there, I can pull it out pretty easy. Let's move it over here. Right there. Okay, it tried to pull out. But it feels like it's rubbing. In this area, I can feel that the weight of the gib is definitely right there, is on top of that. Okay, so I think in this general area where we've been pressing it, there and about, still has maybe 1 thousandths in it, right in this general area, right about here. Yeah, so right in that general area, right about there. I want to try to get 1 more thou out of that before we call this done. By the way, it is hinging nicer now. We've got a hinge point about right here, and then down here on this end, right about in here, right about the end of the groove right there. So it has improved dramatically. So 1 more press, and I think we're going to call this guy done. Looks like we moved it about 1.5 thou on the dial there. Hopefully that's going to be exactly where we needed it to be, but I think this is going to call it done. All right, is this going to be it? I sure hope it is. All I can say is that we've definitely improved upon this gib here. So let's go ahead and give it a hinge and see what it's looking like. Okay, we definitely have moved in there now, and it looks like right about there. That's about where it's hinging at. We may have went a little bit too far, but that's approximately 30%, maybe just more, a little bit more than that. Let's see, this end here is right about approximately there. So we're pretty darn flat, okay? Let's take our 1 thou shim and put it underneath here and see if man, it just wants to stick to your skin. I can still pull it, but I can't tell if I'm putting too much force on the shim to pull it out. I can't tell. It's just my finger's really definitely trying to pull it out. Now right there it's not. So you got a little, so that's what it is. Right in there, right in that general area, you still have a little bit of a low spot. But look how much we've improved it though. So that's 1 thousandths is what that is using that shim stock. So we're gonna call this done as far as our straightening goes. And And just to repeat what I said earlier about the scraping, I don't see the benefit of scraping this since we're not scraping anything else to match it. I think it's still flat and straight enough that it's going to get the job done. We just wanted to try to improve on it, which we have now with getting the bow out of it. So, matter of fact, tell you what, let me try this side right here. So we still have a little bit because it's trying to hinge right there in the middle of that. Right about there, and then right about there. But I think we've done good on that, so let's call it, and we're going to move on to our shim that's going to be glued onto the back of it now. Flat area up in here and right there with a hole in the middle right there. So I don't think I'm going to fool with it. There's really no point in trying to scrape that, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off, and let's go ahead and let's blue this side here and see what it's showing here. I'm just going to wipe that with the rag, and we're just going to slick that again. It still feels like it's a little bit too thick. I might need to thin it. There you go. There's your high spot, definitely. Right there, mainly in the middle, but we do have some bluing going on there, and you can see a little bit of wear sort of in the middle of it right there. Definitely got a high spot there. So I think what we would do right here, you can see a little bit on that bottom edge there as well, the bluing. So wear in here, but it's still got that little bit of a bow. So I think to correct that, you could get the scraper out and just start scraping away the blue here to try to make that whole gib flat. I just don't think it's necessary for what we're doing, but I did want to show this and see how it's how it's printing anyway. We're going to go ahead and get our shim glued down to the gib here. So just to kind of let you know what I've done. I've cleaned it really well. I used this chlor-free universal degreaser from CRC to make sure that the gib was completely clean, and I also wiped off the shim stock there with it as well. Make sure there was no oil on it, and it lines up really nicely. And then so this is what we're going to use to glue this down. This was recommended by my friend Lance Baltzley, so thanks Lance for that. He's done quite a bit of this kind of stuff, working with Turkite, gluing Turkite and shim stock down, and he says that the Loctite 380, also known as Black Max, works really well for this. So that's what we're going to use. I don't know how thick this is, so yeah, it looks like it's pretty thin. Let's just put a little thin layer on here. I think that went pretty good, pretty good. So it definitely does not take much of the 380. Just put it on kind of sparingly and then just kind of rub it around to an even coat. And I could tell that it was already starting to tack in there. That's why I went ahead and hurried up and got the shim in. So that's good to go. I am going to leave this sit overnight, just like you see it. I'm going to come in the morning and we will go ahead and get our gib back in the machine and get it adjusted. All right, it's next morning. Let's check our gib. Well, it didn't bond very well to that end, did it? I think I know why. This end was already starting to dry before I put the shim on there. This side was still very tacky whenever I stuck it down on there. So that stuff, you gotta get moving on it extremely fast. So what we'll do is I'll just go ahead and put a little bit more of our 380 on that end there, and glue this side down. It shouldn't take long to set. So that was me. That was my error right there. But the rest of it, without pulling on it too hard, it feels like it's stuck pretty good from that point all the way down. Just got to do a little buff in there to get that tape residue off of it, but it looks like we stuck that time. Stuff has a very quick cure time. I think once you get it on there, you got a matter of just a few seconds before you need to get going on what you're trying to glue together. All right, we are ready to go reinstall this. Got a can of some whey oil here. I want to go ahead and just shoot some up in there like that. And then we'll go ahead and put a little bit on our static side there, and of course our slideway side. We got our screw that we're going to go in there with. All right, that's feeling pretty good. We're already starting to get a little bit of friction right there, getting it snug. But as we had said before, we need to make sure that the gib is at least flush with the face there so that we can get our cover plate back on. Now, because of the wear, it is going to be, we're all the way fully extended out in our travel, so that's going to be the tightest spot because that's the area of movement that's the least used. That's getting about where we need it right there. So we're just about flush now. I think we're gonna leave it right about there, and I'll do some inspecting. Now, looking up here at our boring bar that we still have mounted, that's past the center line of the spindle there. So hopefully that's going to be about the max of us having to go out there, because it does start getting tighter as you go further out there, and you got to use more force on the hand wheel to get it out. And again, that's because of the wear. That can be repaired by taking everything apart and scraping everything. But out here in the area in which we're going to be using it the most, it still feels really nice. So what I want to do is actually, we're going to bring it back. We'll go ahead and bring it back some into the loosest part of the cross slide movement. Starts to get a little bit tighter as we get all the way back here to the end. We'll go ahead and put our dial indicator back on here. I'll do some pulling on it to see what kind of movement we get in our backlash. Giving you guys the best perspective of the dial indicator there. We've got her set to a 0. You can see we're touching. Set it back to a 0 there. And I'm just going to stand up here and start pulling on this bar again to see what kind of movement we get. I can't really see it from being up here, so I'm going to shoot my own little video and go in there and watch it to see what it's doing, to see what kind of movement we got. We got the gib adjusted flush with the face of the cross slide there, and it feels like it's in a good position. That's me pushing down on it and pushing and pulling on this 2-inch boring bar. So let me go back and see what kind of movement we got there. I set up a stare at 196 indicator there so that I could see it instead of worrying about a video. Now I can just look straight down on the dial and see what's going on here. Putting a lot of pressure on it right there. I'm not even getting a full thousandths. That's a half a thou that I'm seeing. I think that's going to be good enough where we got it adjusted right there. That should work right where it's at. Let's give you guys a little closer shot of that. We reset our 0. Climb up here and pull on it. I'm pulling on this bar, pushing and pulling as hard as I can. Let's see what we got. I'm happy with the readings that we're now getting there with our improvements on the gib. What I was seeing there is somewhere around a half a thousandths movement. Me pulling and pushing on that bar, trying to get this thing to twist as much as I can there. When we first started, we had right about 10 thousandths, basically a gap in there that it was moving in, and we have filled that. We have filled that void, and we've got our gib there flush with the face, so we can go ahead and reattach our wiper and the wiper plate. And I think we're going to be good to go. You still have good movement there. That's not hard. Now it will get a little bit harder to pull that once we get all the way across to the back side, but it's pretty rare that we have to go that far back. But this is going to tighten this cross slide up tremendously and make a big improvement on it. Now ultimately what we would like to do is take all this apart, take the cross slide completely off, and re-scrape these ways, both sides, and then re-scrape the dovetail on the bottom of the cross slide there to match, scrape the gib, all that. But that's getting into a complete machine rebuild, which is not what I'm looking at right now. We're just making improvements on the machine so that we can come over here and use it, and we know that we can trust the accuracy that we're getting out of it whenever we're using the machine as it is now. So this project is about wrapped up. We'll go ahead and get that wiper plate on and finish this guy out. Got our wiper and everything cleaned up nicely. I thought I would show you the oiling system on the cross slide right here. Back whenever I was rebuilding the compound, I went ahead and replaced these grease zerks here. They're grease zerks, but they're not for grease, they're actually for oil. These holes go all the way up in on the inside of these dovetails to the center, and then they come out, and that's how you actually oil the sliding ways there. This is one that I had found online, the push and lube. And it works okay, but I don't really think it works that well. And what I mean by that is, I mean, the function of this, the way it works is that it's spring loaded and you just do this right here. But the problem is that it doesn't really push any oil in there. There's got this little plastic piston in there. And as I'm pushing it, the piston is moving up. The oil isn't actually really going in there. It's just very small amounts of oil that's getting in it. So you have to sit here and just do this hundreds of times to get any amount of oil down in there to make a difference. So I don't know, maybe we need to make a different piston or something for that to make that work. So the idea behind it's good. I just don't think it works well. Now another thing that I have done is I machined this adapter, and this is the end of the grease gun right here. This was a separate piece that I bought made by Lincoln, and I machined this fitting here, put a little pipe nipple together, 1/8 pipe, and I made this so that it would screw on to the end of one of these goldenrod oilers here. That's a 1/4 28 tip on the end of this, so you can just unscrew this tip here and screw this on, like so. And the idea is that you use some thread sealant on that as well. The problem with this though is that this actually doesn't work for me either, because I mean I assumed that this was going to work fine, and then you could just use this oil gun and just shoot oil up in there as much as you want. When I push this on that Zerk and start squeezing the trigger, I can't get the oil to go past this ball check valve inside here. And I don't know if it's because I'm just not applying enough pressure or what's going on, but I can't get the oil to come through here to the point to where you're going to start tearing this oiler up, because it's just, you know, little bent steel parts there, this trigger. So this isn't working either, but I thought my idea was going to be great for oiling this thing. So I'm wanting to come up with another idea to be able to oil these regularly much easier. I think I'm going to go ahead and invest in another grease gun and modify an actual grease gun, maybe with a different piston inside of it, so that I can put oil in it and put a nice you know, custom machine piston that's not going to push or leak by in the grease gun, and be able to use an actual pump lever style grease gun to pump oil up in there. So maybe some of you other guys have some better ideas or already know of something that exists, but all the searching that I did, I couldn't find an actual oiler or grease gun designed for this exact application. It's only designed for grease. So that's my idea, something I'm going to work on. All right, well, this project is wrapped up, and once again we've got good movement still of our cross slide. That's the easiest area that we can move it, but it's going to be the most common used area of the cross slide right there. But I feel really confident that our gib repair is going to work fine. There's going to be people that disagree with how I did that by using a plastic shim. I think it's going to be just fine. I don't think the oil is going to hurt anything. That gib and that shim is captured in there, and we even did a little more improvement by straightening it as well. So this one's wrapped up. Now I do want to bring you guys back very soon. I would like to take a big piece of 4140 shafting, get it in here, and do some test cuts with that. We haven't done that yet. And the pacemaker that I ran at Motion, when I would be cutting those gearbox shafts, whenever I would do my roughing, I would always be taking 1/2 inch of pass at about a 22 thou feed rate. I think I have gone up to, I think 5/8 was my maximum metal removal that I ever took. So, you know, you're talking 5/16 depth of cut or a 1/4 inch depth of cut with a 22 to 24 thou inch per revolution feed on that. And that's moving some metal. And you can get a shaft rough down pretty quickly like that. So I'd like to kind of do some tests over here and see what this pacemaker can handle, how it handles those heavy chips, and see how it performs. So we're going to bring you guys back very soon to do that. And I also have another project that I need to get to on it as well. The clutch still needs some adjustment on there, so that's going to be another repair project that I'll bring you back for. Need to get into the clutch and see if we can make some improvements and adjustments there to help eliminate the noise that it makes. It sort of has that rattle noise whenever it's idling, and it's a little frustrating listening to that whenever the machine's running. I think it sounds bad in the background too when you guys are watching some of these projects, but we'll get to that very soon as well, see if we can make some improvements on the clutch. But I hope to see you again very soon. We'll bring you back. We'll do some heavy chip making over here on the Pacemaker.